What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with the final golf major video of the year, the Open Championship at Royal Troon. DFS picks for DraftKings and FanDuel, best bets, everything you need to know for the Open this week. Welcome. I am Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, joined once again, finally, by our PGA writer at OccupyFantasy.com, Niromada. Nero, it is always a pleasure to speak with you, but a little bittersweet with this being the last major of the year.
Yeah, every time I get here, it's like, "Wow, how did it go so fast?" And it's like, wait, now I gotta wait like 9 months until the Masters. I definitely have criticisms for the current PGA Tour schedule, the signature events and stuff. But the thing I hate the absolute most is that the majors are crammed into like a 3.5 month time period, and then you don't get them again for like 10 months. I mean, it's fun during those 3.5 months, but it's like, that's it, really? Come on, you can't stretch it out some more. And especially, I think the main thing is like with the live golf breakaway, you just have so few events where they're all together, all the best players, and to have them all happen in such a short period of time, I just don't love it. So yeah, I'm with you. Definitely bittersweet.
All right, but we're going to make the most out of it this week for the Open. And this is what we're going to do in this video. We will talk about the betting markets, how they're shaping up through Tuesday afternoon. We will analyze the top studs. Who are the guys at the top of the salary and odds boards that you should be focusing on in your lineups? Our favorite live guys, favorite European plays, cheaper, lower owned options to help you get different in tournaments, help you save salary. And in a couple minutes here, we will just talk about the course in general to let you know which types of golfers we expect to excel. Before we get into that, if you're new here, welcome. And you may be wondering, why the hell should I be listening to these two guys, one of which doesn't even have a face on camera? It's a great question. We have multiple six-figure wins in PGA DFS, and a metric that we use to judge Niromada's picks in our daily plug, which is the write-up he does every single week. We looked at how many points a player is expected to score based on their salary, and we compare Nero's picks, how they perform to their salary-based expectations. So far this year, Niromada's picks have exceeded their expectations by more than 1,000 combined points. Congratulations, Nero. Let's see if we can keep it rolling this week.
If only I could take that to my accountant, and then that would be amazing, amazing, amazing. It is a good reminder though for everyone. Like that's how hard DFS can be sometimes, and that is a reminder that it is a game of game theory, as well as projections. Like you can out project the market and everybody else, but if you can't do the rest of the stuff well, like you're still not gonna make money. So
That is
um,
exactly right. And we're going to here to help you out to try to put it all together. So let's talk about this course really quickly, Nero. Royal Troon. Many of the viewers may not care about this section, but there are some golf enthusiasts or DFS players who like to make their own picks based on what the golf course is telling us. And a little bit different. Remember St. Andrews, driving distance was important. We look here and is much more accuracy off the tee. And we looked the last time this was played here, we saw irons off the tee on most holes by Stenson and Phil Mickelson in that battle. And so accuracy, the rare time where it's maybe more important than distance here. Approach shots from all distances, especially once you consider the wind and you're going into the wind, wind's behind your back. So you're gonna have wedges, you're gonna have long irons, really true tests. And as I said in the video for the US Open, if you're a visual learner, a lot of these golf YouTubers are playing these courses ahead of time. Rick Shields, who's a golf YouTuber, he did a video this week that came out. You get to see him play every single hole. Now, granted, he's not a PGA Tour pro, and he's going to be in some situations that PGA Tour pros are not going to be in. But we looked at all the data-driven metrics for our Occupy model, Nero. But just from my eyes, and now that I play golf somewhat routinely, and I think I can get a sense of what these golfers are going to be doing. My takeaway from watching the course being played was you got to get on the fairway because there are some major hazards out there. And two, the short game didn't look that tricky. Now, granted, I'm going to be the first to tell you I don't have a great short game, so I'm not going to say it's easy for me. But for PGA Tour level players, short game doesn't look to be as important here. The shots don't look to be that tricky. I'm curious if you think the same way, and then more importantly, what you think overarching the types of players that we should be looking for at this tournament.
yeah, so on the course, a lot of agreements for me. I actually know someone who played the course about 6 or 7 weeks ago and
Mhm.
was nice enough, excuse me, was nice enough to write me up some notes on what they thought, and the first thing they said was, "Summer's been wet and warm, and the rough is nasty." And again, the rough in Europe or on links courses, let's just say, is much different than American rough. American rough, you'll have like real long ryegrass or bluegrass, or some real thick, long Bermuda where the ball will drop down to the bottom. This is like long, wispy grass interspersed with like chunks of really thick grass, sometimes plants and other things that your ball can really get stuck in. And in addition, on Troon, a ton of pot bunkers that you can't necessarily see from the tee all the time, that are literally a half a stroke to a full stroke penalty, because if you get in them, you're like literally going to have to hit out sideways. So that's why you see a lot of players will be de-emphasizing driver this week. We'll be choosing 3 woods and irons off the tee to try to focus on position rather than distance. I mean, distance always helps. Distance still helps here, but it's definitely a course that profiles more for a little bit more, rewards accuracy a little bit more than it rewards distance. And in America, at least, the modern tour course absolutely rewards distance most times more than it rewards accuracy. So stats are par 71. It's going to play almost 7,400 yards. I think about 7385 this week is what they've got listed. It'll play a little bit different each day. First 6 holes, much easier than the rest of the course. Traditional links course, the 9 holes that start go out and away from the clubhouse, and then you turn around and you come back with the next 9 holes towards the clubhouse. This is pretty close to that, and the first 6 holes are shorter. They're easier, and they usually have the prevailing wind at your back. 7 through 18, 7 through 9 still go out a little bit, but then everything else usually coming back into the prevailing wind. Those holes are longer to start with, and they're into the wind. So you're going to see a lot more birdies made in the first stretch than you're going to see in the second stretch. To your point on the short game, for most links courses have really big green complexes, in kind of like the fake links course that we saw last week at the Renaissance Club where they played the Scottish Open. We saw very undulating greens with like tons of break and slope and all kinds of stuff. And that the greens at Troon this week are not like that. They're pretty small. I think they're the smallest greens on the Open Rota, and they're relatively flat. So kind of like old school links greens. You know, priority is going to be on ball striking over short game, for me for sure. And I think if we can focus on that, we're going to be in better shape than if we're overly focused on the short game this week.
That sounds great. Love to hear that. Glad to hear that we're at least in alignment on how we think the course is going to play. And the weather is always an impact over there for the Open. How do you see the weather playing out this week? Do you think it's going to play a major impact? Will there be wave advantages potentially? Always important. So what do you think there?
Yeah, so we'll have the link in the plug when it gets published later tonight. Right now, it looks like there's going to be a decent amount of wind blowing consistently around 15 on Thursday and almost to 15 on Friday. At the moment, draw bias doesn't necessarily look like there's a huge draw bias, because the wind looks to be heavier in the afternoon both days. Now, the Friday afternoon wind currently looks to be the heaviest of the Thursday and Friday. So you're blowing 15, 16 pretty consistently, gusting, 20 to 30, or sorry, 25 to 30. And that's, it's the wind on these links courses, since they're so close to the ocean, especially Troon, which is literally right, well, necessarily the ocean, but it's right on the water on the, I don't even know what the body of water is. I just know it's not an ocean. That wind is pretty heavy. So it's gonna affect the players for sure, for certain. Now, last thing I'll say on this is these things change. Especially these forecasts on links courses, change all the time. So you're gonna want to be checking back either to plug updates or in the Discord channel, and we'll keep you updated on up until late Wednesday, what we think the wind's going to be doing. And on that same note, by the way, lock is what, 1 or 2 in the morning Eastern time
Yep.
on Thursday, or midnight or something like that. So, uh, you need to have everything ready to go late Wednesday afternoon, early Wednesday evening, because the golf is going to start while you're sleeping.
Yeah. 1:35 a.m. Eastern is the official lock time on DraftKings, and links to the resources Nero mentioned are in the description below the Daily Plug, which will be out Tuesday night, and the Discord server. We'd love to have you where you can chat with other members of the community, sweat out the event with us as well. And another note on the weather, we talk about draw biases, meaning some golfers who play early Thursday and Friday afternoon may have an advantage when it comes to easier or worse conditions compared to those who tee off Thursday afternoon and Friday morning. And oftentimes, if you're new to playing PGA DFS or you just haven't noticed, sometimes forecasts can flip and sometimes forecasts are right. And sometimes we don't have a clear forecast before, but it does develop over the course of the first 2 days, which, if you're playing multiple lineups, is always a reason to build some draw biases, build some full wave stacking into your lineups. So just really quickly, Nero, maybe you're making 3 lineups and you like guys from all waves. Maybe you make one lineup with all guys from Thursday morning, another lineup all guys Thursday afternoon, and then your third lineup can be a mix of the two if no advantage materializes, right?
Yeah, 100%. So like, if I'm making let's say I'm making 100 lineups and just keep the math nice and easy. If I think there's a significant draw bias, I might make 25 or 30 lineups that are favor that draw bias. 60 lineups that are just normal, interspersed, but I will take a small section, 5%, maybe 10's maybe a little too high, but like 5% of them for sure I will take, and I will flip it even though it's against the forecast, just in case the forecast is wrong, or a different draw bias develops. Like, you will get massive leverage, especially if the field is generally building for what is the accepted draw bias before lock.
Players Championship always come to mind a couple of years ago where there was a
Yeah.
big wave advantage expected, and something like 1% of the large field GPP stacked the other way. And it turned out to be like a 3-stroke advantage or something crazy, which is always a reason to just keep that in mind because, as just a regular person who watches weather forecasts, you know that forecasts are often wrong. So why can't they be wrong in a golf tournament? Especially when it comes to the win. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's move on, Nero. Let's talk about the guys at the top of the salary board. Scheffler, Bryson, who's just been outstanding in majors so far in 2024. Rory, Xander, John Rahm, and Ludwig Obert. Any initial thoughts on guys you like in this range? Is it a lock and jam Scheffler week? Bryson, can he continue this even though it doesn't necessarily look like it favors his style of golf? But shit, he's played well at every major venue so far this year. So can we really say that anymore? Give me the rundown here on the 10K plus golfers and how you expect your exposures to shake out as of Tuesday.
Yeah, let me give one like macro view on why I de-emphasize these top guys a little bit at this particular tournament, at the Open Championship. This is one where you see outsiders win a ton. We've already talked about one of the reasons, well, two of the reasons, the weather and the draw bias that happens. Again, that's random, right? Like, you don't know when you get assigned your tee time if you're going to be in a good slot or a bad slot. It's a style, of course, that's only played 1 to 2 times a year by the Americans, and it's very, very different than the standard like American golf course. So it requires a mastery of like a wide range of shots. You need to hit it high, you need to hit it low, you need to hit it on the ground, you need to be able to cut it, to draw it, to slice it, to hook it. Like, you got to be able to move the ball in both directions, and you need to be creative because the course requires creativity as opposed to just a lot of stock shots that you see in American courses all the time. So that, you know, all those players that you just mentioned, Scheffler, Aubert, like all of them, like, of course they are better than everybody else in the field, and they could easily just roll up, do their thing, and like still defeat the golf course and defeat the field. But this is a week where they just don't, where their advantage is not quite as big as it is in other weeks, and that's primarily because, like, golf, if you play golf DFS, you know how much variance there is in the game of golf, and then you add in the DFS variance, and so you're multiplying variance times variance. Well, this particular week, you're multiplying variance times variance times variance because there is no more variant type of golf than links golf for the Open Championship. So, if there's any week where I think it's defensible and maybe even optimal to be a little bit under on the guys at the extreme top end of the market, it would be this week. That's not to say I will still have plenty of exposure to all these guys. I might even be over the field on one or two of them, but I will have plenty of lineups that do not include any of these guys at the very top. Now, for the guys at the very top, uh, my favorite one, if I'm looking at just the 10K and above guys on DraftKings, is Oberg. He probably should have won last week. Uh, I think he's such a great fit for this stuff. I mean, Rory would be my second favorite because again, plays this type of golf all of the time. From there, Schauffele would be my third, then Scheffler, and then the Live Boys, DeChambeau and Rahm. Now, Rahm, is interesting because when you look at like early ownership projections, you can see that you're maybe not going to have a ton of well, you won't have crazy amounts of ownership for the guys at the top. Like DeChambeau might even be single digits, as you mentioned, Brian. Like, yeah, was the Masters a great fit? No. Did Bryson come out and outperform his salary? Yes, he did. Like he's done it every time this year, so I'm not gonna put it past him. So you could say, game theory, let me play more Bryson in the field because I could play 14% of Bryson and I still am nicely over the field. And I'm not, if he doesn't do well, then I'm not ridiculously like exposed to him. Rom, same thing. His ownership probably be pretty low, but if Rom and Oberg have the same roughly the same ownership, then I'm gonna take Ludwig. So yeah, that's my preference: Ludwig, Rory, then Xander. And sorry for the preamble at the beginning about the variance of this stuff.
No, dude, we will always take a speech or advice on variance at all times when it comes to PGA DFS, especially in these videos. And so we talk about these studs, and we talk about generally the wide open nature of open venues. That moves us into a nice transition to the next segment where we talk about the betting market moves. And if you've been an Occupy Fantasy subscriber or a viewer for a while, you know about our trifecta plays. Essentially, what we do, we look at generally three sports books that we consider sharp. They take heavy golf action that is respected. And if a golfer's odds to win throughout the week improve at all three of these sports books, we call them a trifecta play. Their hit rates are outrageous when it comes to DFS. They're also outrageous when it comes to winning tournaments. And so we really like to track these guys, especially during major weeks. And when we think of a wide open nature, Nero, at least as of Tuesday afternoon, and maybe this changes by Wednesday evening, I was expecting one of those weeks where we get like 6, 7, 8 guys on the trifecta list. They're lower down the odds board, signals that it is wide open. However, just 3 guys so far, and again, this will change as by Wednesday, but John Rahm is on the list. Xander is on the list, both guys in the 10K range. And then Tony Finau, who's not in the 10K range, but I consider a pretty good golfer. And he is priced this week. Let's see, Finau is 8,700, so still, top half of the salary range. So two studs and one good golfer, which was a little shocking to me. What do you make of that? And then secondly, what do you make of Finau's chances and his odds and his skill set on this course?
I'd say the first thing is there a common thread amongst those three golfers? And there is a common thread for these three, and that is they gain their advantage with their longer clubs rather than their shorter clubs. So yeah, do they all have great short games? Of course, especially relative to me, you, or anyone else that's listening to this. But that is not where they create leverage, and that's not where they create advantages. All three of them create advantages with driver, fairway, wood, and their irons. And that's what we want to target. That's what we want to target on this course is players who um, hit the target more often than they miss it, because missing the target is going to get penalized here, especially off the tee. So I think that's my common thread with them. For Finau specifically, I think Tony's a great play this week. His course history or his event history, we'll say, for opens is a little bit underrated. He actually, does pretty well in these types of contests. He can handle bad weather. And if you're going to tell me that the course has mostly flat greens, they're pretty small, and therefore, like, I don't think I'm going to need like a tremendously skilled putter to navigate these slopes and humps and bumps and everything like that. Like, give me Finau in that type of situation like all day.
And Finau infamously on my 200K weekend at the Open a couple of years ago, so I know very well of his Open history. Very near and dear to my heart. So let's go Finau once again this week. Two other guys, and this will transition into the second half of the show here, where we talk about European guys, live guys, and some cheaper guys that fit the bill. Let's start with Euros and live. But before we do, two guys that were moved at least one of the sports books that we track, Nero. Aaron Rai, Akshay Bhatia, both guys in the 7K range. Both guys in the top 10 of our Occupy model, which is always eye-opening when you see guys in the 7K range near the top. But both these guys, based on the skill sets we expect you need to succeed here, fit the bill really well.
Yeah, neither one of them is a bomber. They both are more accuracy players than distance players. That's where they make their money. Rye in particular is an outstanding iron player, and both of them have very good current form. Like, look at here's Rye's last five finishes: fourth, seventh, second, 19th, 14th. That
Nice.
is the Scottish Open, the U.S. Open, the Canadian Open, and then two smaller tournaments, the John Deere and the Rocket Mortgage. So, not, and then if you go back a few more weeks, he was fourth at the Byron Nelson. So, outstanding current form, good course form, or good event. We'll call it good enough event form. And he was just fourth last week at the Scottish Open. He's English. He's played these types of courses for a long time, so he's just a outstanding fit. Batia fits the mold of a really good iron player who moves the ball a lot. He's actually very creative to my eyeballs, right? It's a pretty hard stat to try to come across, but the thing he shares the most with Rye is the current form. Here's his last four: second, fifth, 16th, 22nd. So playing outstanding golf. Doesn't have obviously as much of the event form because he's very young and he's American. But he plays a type of golf that's a little bit more European than is American because he's not a bomb and gouger at all. He's got, he's long enough clearly, but he gets it done with accuracy more than he does with distance.
Yeah, very curious to see where the ownership ends up on these two guys. Again, we'll have our preliminary ownership up tonight, Tuesday evening, and then we'll have the final update tomorrow night, Wednesday night. So be sure to check back for that in our Occupy model and our lineup builder. All right, let's talk about these Euros and these live guys, Nero. And we'll separate it Euro first and then live. Just give me 1 to 3 guys that stick out to you that fall in these buckets. Maybe a sentence or two why you like them. We don't have to be too extensive. Just keep it brief. So let's start with the European guys. 1 to 3 guys that stick out to you and the reasons why you like them for this event.
Sure. Well, I mean, the aforementioned Aaron Rye would obviously be one of them.
Fair enough.
Uh, Tommy Fleetwood might be my favorite Euro. Like, he just, like, all his skills fit so well. He actually played great last week. He just was no good with his putter at all. And again, hoping this week you're coming to a place where you have a little less emphasis on the putting game. Fitzpatrick would be the same, and I don't think he's going to be very well owned. He was okay last week, but not great. And then the last one I'll say is a little bit more off the radar. Tom McKibben, who is he Irish, Northern Ireland, something like that, Northern
From
Ireland,
that area of
perhaps.
the world, Northern Ireland. Yep.
Yeah, Northern Ireland. He's had a fantastic year on the European tour. Now he's a little bit different because he's longer than he is accurate, but he's got pretty good form on links courses, and has just been crushing the European tour. So especially at his price point, I think is a good European value.
Yeah, and the model likes him as well. Always like to see that with some justification on these guys. Now, what about the live? We talked about Bryson. We talked about Rom. Any other, maybe a little bit further down, one, two guys that stick out to you? Live outside of Bryson, if I'm not mistaken, hasn't really been that great in majors this year, right? I know we've talked about it in the past, but thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bryson and Rom are both playable for game theory reasons because I expect ownership to be down on both of them. I think Hatton is far and away the best live player. Not only is he European, he's English. He's got great links history. He's a fantastic win player. He's not a bomber. He's a great iron player. I assume he's going to be pretty chalky. I would expect him to be, one of the 5 to 10 most owned players, but very very deserved at his price point. So he would be far and away my favorite live play. My next one would probably be Neiman. Even though he's underperformed really so far in the majors, again, still think if you're looking career ceiling type of scenario, he should be a fantastic fit for this type of thing. But with a little bit more risk because he just hasn't played as well as you would expect him to play in the majors so far this year.
Yeah, he's a guy that we've been on for all the majors so far, looking
Yep.
at his live stats and saying how well he's been striking the ball, and that hasn't changed.
Yep.
Variance can happen in just a couple of events. So let's see if we can get back on track here at the Open. All right, let's close out the show with again, we don't have official ownership yet, so we're not going to necessarily call this section low owned plays, but maybe cheaper guys, 7K or below the 7K mark that can help you round out your lineups. Maybe some people aren't thinking about. Let's just name a couple guys, Nero, that come to the top of the mind. And again, you're going to want to check out the Daily Plug and the Occupy model, as well as our Wednesday update and Discord for the final trifecta plays. Maybe some guys from this group sneak in there as well. So cheaper guys, Nero, this is your specialty. I know you could talk maybe 5 to 6 hours about all of these guys, but let's limit it to a handful of guys that stick out to you.
It's so hard. It's so hard. Yes, this is absolutely my favorite spot, and I could do a whole show just on the guys that are priced under $6,500 this week. So let me just go through a few of my favorites. One live guy that we didn't mention, David Puig, I think is how we say it, at 6,100. I think is a very good underrated play. You have Matthew Southgate at 6K, who's like a links specialist from England. He's not going to pop in anybody's models, and he's going to be 1-2%, something close to that. Uh, Shabankar Sharma is another European player. Will be completely unknown. 5,900. I think he's in good shape this week to have a pretty good shot. I've got some other there's some more players that are a little bit more expensive that I expect to be pretty low owned, like Justin Rose, Matthew Fitzpatrick, the McKibben, who we've already talked about, and then two from way off the board who are very cheap. In fact, I'm gonna have to look up their prices right
Now I'm
now. So
excited. If they're this far off the
you
board, you got
should
to scroll all
you,
the way down.
you sh- you should be excited. Elvis Smiley, so 5,300.
We're going there.
I
Okay.
believe this will be his second, third event as a professional. Uh, he's from Australia, very good win player. He's got some connections to Troon, and has been here a number of times, played it a number of times. He's very good. He's like a high level amateur. I don't think he's quite at the same level as some of these American amateurs that we've been seeing lately, like Clanton and Shipley, but it should give you what you've seen from Clanton and Shipley on the American tour in the last couple of weeks. It should give you some confidence that like these kids, especially who have had 10 years of TrackMan training and everything, like they're fearless and they are way more ready to compete than guys were 10 to 15 years ago just because of the training. And then I'll call out one last amateur, an actual amateur, Dominic Clemens, who I think is in the top 20 or top 25 in the world amateur rankings, has been tearing it up this summer, and he's English, I believe, and has won tournaments on a number of links courses. So he's got a very tight link specialty, and he's a very high level amateur. He'll be 0 point whatever. And he's super cheap, and he could help fill out a last lineup and finish 30th, and get you somewhere near the top of a GPP because you can fit in, not because of him, but because he allows you to fit in five other really good players.
And just to be clear for everyone watching, you're not playing these guys in cash games, probably not small field tournaments either. But if you're playing, 1,000 player plus GPPs, certainly the Millionaire Maker. These are the types of guys that you can include in your player pool. Not necessarily key around, just very again when they're less than 1% owned, there is a reason for that. And you only need a handful, Nero, to get over the field.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Even if you're only playing 20 lineups, right? And you're gonna have 10% of somebody, one of these guys. You don't even need that. You just need them in one lineup, and
Yep.
you got them in 5%, and the field's gonna have them in 1% or 0.5%. So again, theoretically, you have a massive advantage if these guys outplay their odds, even if you only have them on one or two of your twenty lineups.
That is exactly right. And that is a great way to close out the show for the final major video of the year. You can check out Nero's work at OccupyFantasy.com. The daily plug will drop tonight. By the time you watch this, it might already be up, depending on when you're viewing this video. So OccupyFantasy.com link is in the description below. Nero's top plays, most importantly, lineup construction tips, always in a must-read section for the majors. How to build your lineups for different contests for FanDuel and DraftKings. You don't want to miss that section. Occupy model is already up and running with our player projections and rankings. Ownership will be out tonight and finalized by Wednesday evening. Lineup builder is up, ready to go. You can build up to 300 lineups using our Occupy model values. All the rules Nero lays out in the plug. And our trifecta plays will be in the Wednesday update tomorrow in the daily plug. And then the final list, all important list, will be posted in our Discord server. That link is in the description below. That'll be posted Wednesday evening. Nero, final thoughts here just from me. Thank you for coming on to these shows. I know you're a very busy man, and it's always a pleasure to do these shows with you. And I'm already looking to the ones that we're going to do next year as well. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everybody for listening and giving me a platform to spew my golf nerdness out into the world. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So if you're not already, subscribe to the channel. NFL preseason is coming. Tons of videos. NFL season will be here shortly. The channel is going to be loaded with videos. You don't want to miss those. So subscribe. Free way to support the channel and let you know when we post new content, and give us a thumbs up. Any questions you have, we'll be in the Discord for the next 3 days, next 5 days, honestly, for Showdown as well. But if you have any questions before the slate starts, you're not in our Discord, you can always comment on this video below. I'll happily get back to you before the slate starts Thursday a.m. So for Nero, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening, and good luck at the Open.